Hi everybody, Mike Beer here with the first of 3 graded stakes races on the Sunday card at Belmont at the Big A, race number 7. The grade 3 Waya Stakes, it's for older fillies and mares, mile and 3/8 on the turf at the Big A on Sunday, $200,000 purse. Here is your field of 8 fillies and mares. A couple from Chad Brown's barn in here, neither very rare that you'll see a graded stakes race, especially over a distance of ground on the grass in New York where Chad has a couple and he does not have the favorite on the morning line. He does not have the favorite in here though. That honor goes to the number 2 Flirting Bridge. A horse who has, really run well in all 3 starts since arriving stateside earlier this year for trainer Brendan Walsh. The horse does have to stretch out in distance for this race. Is coming off of a loss in the Grade 2 Canadian where she stayed on pretty well. Didn't really see a big excuse for her in there, but she certainly ran a fine race that day. She's your morning line favorite at 2-1. Chad's 2 horses, who will both take a little bit of money in here, are the 1 Capital Structure, who's 7-2 on the line. The number 8 Rocky Sky is 5-1. On the morning line. We'll see what happens with those 2 horses. Obviously, there are 2 horses that you have to consider in a race like this, particularly the horse down towards the inside, at least in my opinion. We'll see how that all shakes out, though, as far as the wagering goes. Here's the Timeform US pace projector for the Waya. Listen, you can't really argue with this pace projector. They have the number 7 Taz out there on the early lead, and Taz is the kind of horse who she doesn't always show speed in her races, but she certainly has plenty of it. She's actually pretty versatile, not only in terms of running style, but in terms of distance. She can run her race going short. She can also run it going long. She is a prior winner over this distance over the Aqueduct Turf Course. That win came way back in 2019, and it came in wire-to-wire fashion. I suspect they'll be trying to go in this race. It'll be, we'll see. Timeform US, I don't think they're going to be going a fast pace at all in this race. Timeform US on the pace projector does not give the advantage to horses racing on or near the early lead, but that certainly is a possibility in this race. We'll see how that plays out. Starting with the horse down on the rail here, Capital Structure. I think this horse is a major player in here, and I think the 7-2 price on the morning line would be very fair on this filly. She had some real trouble staying on the racetrack as a young horse. The potential was there for her, right from the start. She ran several good races to kick off her career, including that 4th career start way back at the end of her 3-year-old campaign, the Grade 1 American Oaks, where she got wired by a stablemate of hers going a mile and a quarter. She did not get a good trip in that race, though. It actually ran really well. Unfortunately, for Capital Structure, she only managed to get 2 starts in last year as a 4-year-old. The first of those at a mile and a quarter off of the layoff at Belmont, she ran really well that day. She made an early move into a solid pace going a mile and a quarter in that spot and was only run down late by a stablemate of hers, Virginia Joy, who is now a multiple graded stakes winner. Only other start during that 4-year-old campaign came at Saratoga last August over very yielding turf. And I think when you go back and watch the replay of that race, it's pretty clear the Capital Structure did not like the going that day. That could be a concern because there is rain in the forecast for this weekend, and maybe she just doesn't like giving the ground. But certainly that's not a race I don't think you want to hold against her. She never seemed to put forth any kind of effort in that race. And I think she was just protecting herself over that kind of ground. 2 starts for Capital Structure so far as since she's come back as a 5-year-old. 3 starts rather, and she's run well in all of them. The first one off the layoff, going a little bit shorter, was just in a race that was sort of slow early and fast late, and she was trying to close ground into it. She's actually making up a little ground at the end of that race, but it just wasn't really the kind of race that set up well for her, especially in her first start back from a very long break. Her second start, though, off the layoff is the race we'll look at right now. This is a really impressive win for Capital Structure. It came going this distance when they stretched her out up at Saratoga. They did not go fast on the pace at all early in this race. Just sort of walking on a rated pace was the eventual runner-up in that race, Ice Princess. Capital Structure came with a huge finish from the back, just taken wide, charged right by this field down the outside. A very impressive win, I thought, going away at the end. Since then, they've come back to try her in a stakes race at Pimlico rather, down in Maryland, and she had a big excuse that day. Another race where they just walked down the early lead, but her saddle slipped early. They couldn't really control her up the backstretch. It's a race you want to be forgiving for. I think Capital Structure is a major, major player in here, especially over this distance, which I think is a good one for her. The number 2 is Flirting Bridge. She's the morning line favorite. She can win here. I thought she was really impressive winning her stateside debut with that 92 by her. Of course, that was going shorter over that Churchill turf course, which is really hard to get a read on. But it was an impressive win visually. It also got a figure They came back in the Penny Memorial at Parks in mid-July. She ran fine in that race, sort of made another, big wide move into the stretch in there, but she just could not get to a really good filly and Princess Grace, who was up front controlling the pace that day. Floating Bridge was only second best, but she ran fine in that race. Her most recent start, again, came up at Canada, stretched out a little bit to 9 furlongs in the Grade 2 Canadian, and she ran well again. It's just the kind of race where, overall, she got a really good trip in that race. She was never far away from the pace. She had dead aim on that field through the stretch. You could kind of tell as they came, down to about the 8th pole that she was not going to win. She just did not have enough to get to the horse on the lead, the eventual winner, Fed Rover. And then she got easily outfinished by Crystal Cliffs from behind for second. But she did stay on to the end. I suppose the way that she stayed on and was actually sort of getting some of that ground back towards the end of that race could offer some hope that she will handle this stretch out in distance. I still think it remains to be seen. And, as much as I like some of her races, I really didn't want her as the favorite against this field. I do think she could win, though. The number 3 is Gladys. We'll see what Gladys does. It looks like she's in a little bit tough here. She does have that race 3 starts back over this distance, the Grade 3 Robert G. Dick Memorial at Delaware, but she finished an okay third. In some ways, it's the best race she's ever run. The problem with that race is, and it did come with her being up on the lead, and I suppose they could just go with her in this race as Saez takes over. The problem with that race, though, is it was run over a very boggy turf course, and while she finished third, the horse that won the race was just an impossible long shot. And there were other, really talented fillies and mares in that race who just didn't handle that turf course at all and didn't show up with any kind of run. I think it makes it hard to evaluate Gladys coming into this race, but it's clear either way, whether you like that race or not, that she just has to improve if she's going to beat this field. Certainly a rain-softened turf course, I guess, could help her based on that Dick Memorial. The Lovely Lucky's the 4, 30-1 on the morning line. Is she a likely winner of this Waya? No. Can she win this race? She certainly can. This mare has kept really good company. She doesn't win very often, but longer distances are better for her. She has plenty of tactical speed to fall into a trip in this race. Listen, her first 3 starts so far as a 6-year-old, they haven't been good. They really haven't been close to her best, and that has to be a concern. They have all come versus much better horses than this. So while this is still a graded stakes race, it's certainly class relief for Lovely Lucky. I think she actually fits pretty well with these horses if she can find a way to run her best race. Certainly for a horse who's the longest shot on the morning line. I think I've seen way worse horses at big prices in races. I could certainly use Lovely Lucky in here. The 5 is Flying Fortress. We'll see what happens. Very lightly raced for an excellent trainer. To me, through her first couple of starts last year, which came sprinting, she just looked like a real work in progress there. Won really easily in her career start, going 5.5 at Colonial. They went to Kentucky Downs, yielding turf for her second start. It didn't, really take that much of a step forward in there. Those races at Kentucky Downs, though, I don't really like to put too much stock in them, especially if horses run poorly and then are able to bounce back out of those efforts. And I think that's what Flying Fortress has done so far this year. She's 2 for 3 as a 4-year-old. Her effort 2 starts back, the lone loss so far this year. I thought she ran fine that day, just sort of got untracked a little bit too late from well off the pace and was really running at the end. Just ran out of time and came up short. Last time, they just put her on the lead going 1 mile and 1/8. She was, a very heavy favorite. A little hard to settle early in that race, but she came to hand, always controlled the action up front, never really gave that field a chance. I thought she ran well. I think there's a lot of upside here. I don't mind them stretching her out in distance for this race, especially with her sort of versatile running style that she has. Can't say that I love her in here, but I could use this horse for sure. We'll see what kind of price she is. The number 6 is Castana. I think there's an argument to be made that she should be the morning line favorite in here, and certainly could be the favorite come post time. We'll see what she does. She's run some good races, though. It feels like distance is key for her. She has a great running style with good tactical speed, doesn't need to be on the lead, but is not going to be that far away from it. Won her only start. She broke the only time that she won going a distance of ground is when they went this distance at Saratoga with her last summer. That was right before a long layoff, but she ran well that day to win. Her first start off the layoff this year was in that Capital Structure race that we looked at earlier, and she just didn't run that well in there, but it was her first start off of a long layoff, and she was, like Capital Structure was, she was well off the pace in that race. So certainly you can give her the benefit of the doubt for that race in her first start back after missing almost an entire year. She came back with 1 start after that. It was in the Grade 2 Flower Bowl against much better horses. She did earn a 96 buyer in that race. Now, that was a race that was run at a super slow pace, and she was, very close to it. But still, running against horses like Virginia Joy and Warlike Goddess, and then running against, these kinds of horses, it's a very big difference. I think Costana, in some ways, is the horse to beat in this race. Taz, we touched on, she's probably going to be on the lead in here. I'm actually a fan of hers. I respect the fact that you can kind of do anything you want with her, short or long, take her off the pace, put her on the pace, whatever. She shows up and she runs no matter what. It does feel like races like this are probably a little too tough for her. The number 8 is Rocky Sky, the other Chad Brown runner in the field. I don't really know what to say about her. She came over with a couple of wins on her card from Ireland. It's gone 0 for 5 since she's entered the Chad Brown barn. I don't know. It's just really hard to keep making excuses for her, and I don't really think there are necessarily excuses to be had anyway. Last time they tried to stretch her all the way out for the first time to see if that made a difference, and I guess she ran okay to get up for second behind a horse who, went right to the front and wired the field, but still didn't feel like the kind of effort that necessarily made me want to take her in this race. Although I guess if you want to keep the faith and feel like this is finally the right race for her, I guess you'll get a fair price on her. I didn't really like her. We can put the picks up there. Now I'm going to go with Capital Structure in this race, the number 1. I really liked that effort 2 starts back. I still think that she's lightly raced enough that we may not have seen her best race so far, and I respect the fact that she's now finally putting races together for the first time in her career. This is going to be her 4th start without a layoff, and I think if she runs back to that win 2 starts back, she can be really, really tough in here. So I put her on top. I threw Shug's lightly raced number 5, Flying Fortress, in there second. I do think the number 6, though, Castana, in some ways, is probably the horse to beat in here. I'm going with Capital Structure, though, in the Grade 3 Waya Sunday at Belmont at the Big A. It's race number 7, the approximate post time, 4:07 Eastern Time. Good luck.